I take pride in the words, Ich bin ein Berliner.
Trouble is, Ich bin ein Berliner means I am a donor. And,
In 1963, President Kennedy gave a speech in Berlin. He said, Ich bin ein Berliner, or I am a Berliner. But outside of Berlin, some German-speaking people took the line to mean,
I am a donor. And,
language differences like these can cause some serious problems.
I would like to buy a dagger.
Maybe we should stop.
So given our global economy and international politics, it's worth wondering, why don't we just create a universal language?
Don't nobody understand the words that are coming out of your mouth, man.
In the late 19th century, the book Unuo Libro was published by a man writing under the name Dr. Esperanto. He wanted to construct the first serious international language, which came to be called Esperanto. And it was a noble plan, design an easy-to-learn language that could be adopted universally and international cooperation would follow. But despite virtuous goals and over 130 years of development, Esperanto failed to really take off.
Lots of smart people figured that this would be a perfect thing, a language that would be a universal language that everyone would adopt, and it failed massively.
That's Professor Bruce Caldwell. He says that a big reason why some languages fail has a lot to do with how they're developed. And there's two main ways that can happen. The first is that a language can be constructed, much like Esperanto. Its rules are designed with intention, typically by a small group of experts. The second, and more common way, is for a language not to be designed, but to emerge. Think of it this way. This is a caveman with no formal language, and he needs to warn the rest of his tribe of a nearby predator. By using a sound they all know means run, he's able to quickly communicate the threat to everyone else. And the more they use this sound, the more it starts to resemble a word with a definition. With the exception of Esperanto, no one person designs these words. They emerge from the bottom up, by people pursuing their own goals, creating words to communicate simple concepts for their own limited needs. And over time, without anyone intending it, these words come to form an orderly whole, what we call a language. This process of creating something big and complex by no one's design but through everyone's action is what economists like Professor Caldwell call spontaneous order.
Spontaneous orders are often contrasted with constructed orders. The idea that you could have something that is not deliberately constructed, that is nonetheless beneficial, is quite a wonderful one.
And the idea of spontaneous order isn't unique to just language. It's everywhere, from legal systems to culture, even art. Back in 2017, Reddit conducted a 3-day social experiment. They created a 1 million pixel canvas, allowing over 1 million users to place 1 pixel down every 5 minutes. And what emerged was at first vulgar and silly, but also pretty impressive. As more users placed down pixels, factions fought for territory on the canvas, and you can see the give and take of them competing, and eventually cooperating. These avocados were taking up a lot of the canvas, but over time, rather than try to erase them, competing users began integrating their designs into the avocados. Same thing with these hearts. This battle between the German and French flags ended with users turning the intersection into the flag of the European Union in a show of harmony. But the beauty of the experiment wasn't how it ended. It was the process of how it got there. It was witnessing what people do when they face competing interests and limited resources, how they're able to achieve order without a master designer, cooperation without a master coordinator. Spontaneous orders are easy to miss when you're not looking for them, but there are plenty of examples in everyday life.
One particularly nice example is the idea of Paris getting fed. No one decides to feed Paris. What you've got are millions upon millions of people. Some of them are people who want to be fed, but lots and lots of people are cooperating in the feeding of Paris. People who produce the food, who bring it to the restaurants, people who create cutlery, napkins, tablecloths, built the restaurant, created chairs, mined the ore that was used in the creation of various utensils. None of these people said, I'm going to feed Paris. All of them cooperate in the action of feeding Paris. It's a beautiful, beautiful metaphor, and it has the virtue of being true.
No one designs the outcome of feeding Paris. How could they? At any given time, they would need to know how many people are hungry, where they are, what they're hungry for, and which grocers and restaurants are best suited to feeding Paris. And getting a hold of this specific, ever-shifting knowledge from millions of people is impossible. Thankfully, Parisians don't need to have all this knowledge in order to eat. The genius of a market that's spontaneously ordered is that all this dispersed knowledge is able to be seamlessly communicated through prices.
Markets emerge through people's interactions trying to improve their lives. The whole idea of supply and demand, which we can put up on a blackboard, is meant to represent the interaction that people undertake naturally.
He just can't charge any price he wants. He has to set a price that will be competitive with other producers and profitable for himself.
Interest in market processes is actually what drove research on spontaneous orders. Friedrich Hayek, the Nobel-winning economist credited with advancing the most important research on the topic, was interested in how people with no direct connection to one another managed to cooperate to produce, exchange, and consume everything.
To lead to these naive conceptions of, after all, what the market does, we can do better intellectually, trying to replace a spontaneous order by a centrally directed order. Our whole modern wealth could arise only thanks to this mechanism.
People like Hayek, who studied markets, was of course worried about people who thought that they could improve on market outcomes through some sort of direct intervention.
Ordering are free on all prices and wages.
Hayek once said that the most important use of reason is to understand its limitations, and I think that's a very good message for experts.
Spontaneous order has shaped our world since the dawn of time. Recognizing its role in building our most important institutions should give us reason to trust one another, to freely shape our own lives, and in the end, our world.